Think of a chic, stylish, advanced European car of the 1960s and companies like Citroen or Alfa Romeo might come to mind. You probably aren't thinking of the Simca, or in this case Talbot 1100. But you should. Let's take this delightful van for a drive and I'll explain why. Simca had identified there was a gap in the market for an upmarket family car that was a cut above the rest. It did a bit of market research and revealed that front-wheel drive and a transverse engine layout was fast becoming the order of the day with cars like the Mini and the 2CV, but all of those cars were slightly hamstrung by old-fashioned, effectively saloon layouts that were separate to the cockpit. So Simca started work developing a new family car that was front-wheel drive and transverse from the ground up, but with some clever thinking towards marketing. It was decided this new car would be a hatchback, it would be offered as an estate and a van, and all within France's very specific 6CV tax class, which made it cheaper to tax than a slightly bigger car with a bigger engine. And by 1967, what was known as the Simca 1100 was launched, and they had done a cracking job of it. For a start, it was a neatly styled thing with this big bright grille, these fins down the edges. Even in this van variant we're driving today, you can tell this is a pretty little car. And when you look at it as a hatch or an estate, it oozes class in a way that only something Italian could match. With one eye on that French tax class, the 1100 was also compact. In fact, the family hatch was under 4 meters in length, and it proved so popular in its layout and how much you could get into such a small footprint that it would go on to set the stage and the blueprint, if you like, for the B segment family car that would ultimately spawn modern variants like the Golf and the Focus. It all really started with the compact and yet practical Simca 1100. Over its smaller Simca 1000 sibling, the 1100 was just 15 centimeters longer, so it was still easy to park and compact, but the wheelbase was a full 30 centimeters longer, which granted more space front and rear and in the boot. So they made the most out of a minimal increase in size, very cleverly engineered. And it was advanced as well. The 1100 was a monocoque, which meant it was more compact, it meant you could have a lower floor, it made it more rigid and safer, as was again fast becoming the trend. In fact, here's one for you. It was the first ever front-wheel drive transverse engine family car, and one that had a hatchback. Properly advanced thinking that, and it adds up to a package that was so much more advanced than the likes of a Cortina that was already on the market. And it wasn't just the body engineering that was clever with the 1100. Under the skin it had all-round independent suspension with double wishbones at the front and anti-roll bars for more composed handling. And because it was French, it was engineered to be comfortable. As you can see on this undulating Kent B road we're on today, it is so comfortable. It just floats along, barely a murmur. These big soft vinyl seats I'm sat in, it is so relaxing and so smooth. It's lovely. And it had front disc brakes, which certainly wasn't a given when most of its rivals were still sporting crude old drums. And the result is that this car that was engineered in the early 60s, if we stamp on it, can stop on its nose. That wasn't even boot to the floor. That's really impressive. And it had rack and pinion steering at a time when even Mercedes-Benz was still putting steering boxes in their cars. So the 1100 has got a really nice feel to the steering. It's well weighted, it's direct and precise, and it nips around on these country lanes with ease. That suspension soaks up the bumps, controls itself well. It feels so easy to do this in a car which ultimately, let's not forget, is an early 60s family runaround, or a commercial in this case. And there was more advanced engineering in the 1100. It was offered with a manual gearbox, or an automatic, or a semi-automatic clutchless affair like the Citroen DS was offering. Properly advanced stuff. And there were a range of engines as well. Initially it was launched with an 1100 version of the Porsche engine we'd seen in the smaller Simca 11000. Over its life there was a 1200 and a 1300 and later a 1500. Gradually more powerful, more refined, torquier and more able to cruise. But even the 1100 version is a peach. It's so smooth. You get these unfair reputation for the Porsche engine of being this rattly old bag of bolts, and admittedly this one has only done 30,000 miles, so it is a healthy specimen, but it is so keen. Let it rev and away it goes. That is really strong performance for what is ultimately an 1100cc commercial vehicle. And Simca really put their all into making this a car that would appeal to everyone. So not only was there 3 different options for gearboxes and various engines, but there were different body styles. At the same time as the hatch, you could get an estate with the same monocoque construction, again a family car first, and it had a folding rear seat, which meant if you didn't need to carry rear passengers, you had a load bay akin to a van. And of course, if that wasn't enough, there was a van. There's this low roof version that we've got here, which is vast in the back, frankly. It's easily as big as a modern Ford Transit back there, and there was even a high top van for even more carrying capacity, and a pickup truck. There really was something for everyone in the Simca 1100 range, and as a result it was a roaring success. And on top of being built in Poissy in France, where Simca were based, and in Madrid in Spain, this thing lived a near 20-year life, only ending in 1985, at which point they'd sold 2.2 million of these things. And you can see why, really, because it's got the chic styling, it's got that advanced engineering underneath it, it's modern, and it feels and drives so much sharper and more composed than many of its cruder rivals from the likes of Ford or British Leyland. You just get an underlying tone that this was a car engineered to be the best it could be, and it feels it. And if all the conventional variants of the 1100 weren't enough, there were some wild ones as well. For a start, the pickup variant was evolved into the infamous Talbot Matra Rancho lifestyle SUV with its big plastic body kit and its raised ride height. That was a forerunner to today's cars like the Toyota RAV4, where you've got the lifestyle image and a bit of off-roading ability without having to have some big old Land Rover. And then there was what some credit with being the first ever hot hatchback, the 1100 Ti, with a whopping 82 horsepower. That's pretty much twice what the standard version produced, along with its alloy wheels, its disc brakes of course, and its body kit, spoiler front and rear. Now of course the very first hot hatch is still up for debate, but you can see where it was going with the 1100 Ti. As indeed can you with the Simca 1100 in general. Over its life it would be in various different forms, and of course given the Chrysler takeover of Simca in the mid-60s, it would wear different badges, even as a van like we've got today. Up until the late 70s you could buy the Simca 1100 van as a Simca, then it was offered for around 2 years as a Dodge, and then like this one we've got here, badged as a Talbot, and it was sold the world over in all kinds of different markets, even in America in certain forms. So they really did get the most of it, and deservedly had the international success that Simca wanted for their new baby. It's a brilliant car, really. With Simca being absorbed into the Chrysler Europe empire and then slowly but surely being whittled out until only its engine survived in some forms in the Peugeot 309, Simca as a brand is barely remembered today, and the following for them is very small. It's down to the purists and the real hardcore dedicated fan base like Guy, who owns this one we're driving today, to keep these cars alive. And they deserve to be, because yes, they had a savage appetite for rust, which is why so few survived, but so did everything back in the 60s. And if you can find one that hasn't rotted away, you realise what a brilliant car the Simca 1100 was. It took everything this pioneering, forward-thinking French variant of Alfa Romeo could do, and produced a world-class family car that showed just how far behind everyone else was. Viva la Simca, I say. But what do you think? Comment down below if you've got any experience with the Simca 1100 or any of its variants, and if you've got a Matra Rancho we can drive. But for now, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for all future Classics World content, and we'll see you very soon. I'm off to deliver some baguettes.